Well, fellow race fans, got some exciting news. Just received word that my old 37X Super X Speedbowl race car is going to be getting a complete overhaul, and it's getting raced at Stafford Speedway this year by the owner of the car, Pete, a good buddy of mine who's, you know, put me behind the wheel of his truck. He let me drive that car for quite a while. But what a lot of people don't know is that that car has been driven all over New England at a multitude of tracks by many different drivers. It was in the rent-a-race car family for a while under his ownership, and in all, probably a dozen different drivers at half a dozen different tracks. Like I said, Speedbowl, Thompson, Stafford, to name a few, just the Connecticut 3 big tracks at least, but it's definitely been out of Connecticut as well. And yeah, Pete is going to be rebuilding it. He's got a whole new body, he's got a new motor, he's putting it all together, him and a few buddies, and they're going to be running at Stafford. So we're going to go catch up with them today and hopefully get a little history lesson on this thing. I definitely think it's worth a listen because I think it's very interesting. A car of that age is getting a whole new life and going to be run all over again, like I said, at Stafford. So tune in and check it out. We are here at Pete's house checking out the old 37 Super X car, or at least that's what it is to me. It's been a lot of things over the years, and apparently we're going to put some new life in this thing. Pete's going to go for a whole run at Stafford. He's got a little team together and they've been working on this thing. They're going to get started here and hopefully get a few starts this season. As you know, I've been working on my Saturn and it's coming along. It's going pretty well, but we wanted to take a ride out today and take a look at this thing before it got any more work done to it, because right now it's in a state of disassemble and ready to build back up again, which anybody that's seen any videos on my channel previously will notice. They've seen the car run, they've seen it in the background a lot, but they probably haven't seen it like this too often. I mean, I've had it in shambles out on the track, on, off, and on the trailer, but never with the motor out. Obviously never with the whole body off of it. And Pete's gonna put a new body on it. So Pete, how long have you had this fine machine?
I've owned this car since 2008, I think.
2008. Wow.
Well, actually, yeah, so I bought it in the off season, 2007, 2008. And before that it was owned by a friend of mine. Before that it was owned by another friend of mine. Before that it was a late model. So this was originally a Stafford late model going back to the early 2000s. Then it was a Stafford limited late model. It was the 42 limited late model. Then it was the number 8 limited late model. Then it was the number 30 limited late model when I drove it. The first year I drove it, and I broke my foot, so there's still some kinks in the frame over here where we got where we pulled it straight. So that's yeah, when I busted my foot. And you could see one up here too.
You can see the plate well.
It's a little bit up here, but yeah, this was
as opposed to the clean on this side.
Yeah, that was
they adapted it pretty decently. I mean, I never really noticed the kink was that big when the motor was sitting here.
Well, that's the thing. The engine hides it, but you can see how bent the motor mounts are. That was done when I busted my foot.
From the outside, it actually looks pretty. I mean, you can see a little twist to it, but it's pretty straight.
Yeah.
But yeah, you took a hit there.
We put it on a frame. They put it on the frame machine and pulled it back straight. And I came back the next year and ran it. And then Stafford changed the limited late model rule book, and it didn't make sense to do all those upgrades that needed to be done to it to be competitive. So we took it at that point in time and turned it into a dare stock. And so it ended up in the rent-a-race car fleet for I think 2 or 3 years as the 66 car. And then when I wanted to get back in it, I stole it back and ran it at the bowl as the 65 a couple of times.
And that's when I actually met you. I was taking a few photos for Passing Bird, helping Laura out, and we were all amped to see you go out there with the Limited Sportsman. And that I got to watch this car run on the track myself before I ever even got behind the wheel of it, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
But you only did a couple of starts with the actual Sportsman division, though, right?
I did, yeah. I ran like the fall final. I think one or 2 years. I just to get in the car and go out and have some fun, and because I really didn't. I just didn't really feel like doing a full season or anything like that anymore. And the car was just sitting around. I was like, oh, let me go take it out. And you know, I did try, and you know, I attempted to run it at Stafford in the dare stock when it was still in the rent-a-race car livery at one point in time, and I was on my way up to the track and I blew the engine in my tow vehicle, and I was like, you know what, not meant to race today, and so that was. So I've actually never. I haven't run this car at Stafford since 2009, and I've never run it as a dare stock. It was a limited late model back then, and now it's 2023, and it's coming back to the track after. What's that? 13, 14.
That is absolutely insane.
And
yep,
yeah.
so I got to run it in maybe, I don't remember, maybe it was 2018. I don't know what year it was exactly. I don't remember, but I took quite a few starts in the Super X division with it. So if you go over all the divisions this thing has been entered in, it is just absolutely insane to me that it's going to get yet another life. I mean, I drive front-wheel drive race cars for the most part, so those chassis don't necessarily last more than 3 or 4 good seasons. I mean, there are guys out there that make it work and they know what they're doing, but for the most part, it only takes a few good hits before you're kind of out of whack. But this thing's still going. And
hey, don't get me wrong. This thing could definitely use a front clip on it because it's, you know, you could see that bend there, and that it doesn't do it any favors. That's for sure. But you know, we're here to have fun. So
yep.
You know what? As long as the thing's still safe to run and handles reasonably, which this does, you know, because you
yep.
drove it. I don't see any reason to clip it yet, but it probably doesn't have too many more hits to the nose in it before it needs to go that route.
Yep. I mean, you can see all the top bars are still straight, and I mean, nothing's catastrophically. I slapped the side bars quite a bit. Let's see, mostly this side going down the front stretch. Oh yeah, look at that. I mean, it took a few licks on this side.
And it was clipped. It was clipped before I bought it because the late models had jacking bolts in the front ends, and the limited late models, which it was being converted over to run, do not have jacking bolts. They have all stock upper control mounts. So I think this was clipped in 2000. I want to say probably off season 2006, maybe.
Wow.
So a year or two before I bought it, it was driven by my friend Ed Charette. And before it was driven by Ed Charette, it was driven by another buddy of mine, Jeff Potter. So, and Jeff got the car from PJ Zarella, who still races up at Stafford. I believe he still has a car in the late model division up there. So this was originally one of his. And somewhere on the internet, Stafford had a promo video with somebody rolling over. And it was an in-car video from this car. Another late model rolling over the hood.
Wow.
And you could tell. I mean, you could just tell it's this car because the shape of the dash inside and everything. It had a number 20 sticker on the dash, which was PJ's number. And so this car has a history. I don't know.
It most definitely has a history.
It's been around for a while.
If we look at here, this is one thing that I liked. We've got quite a few different tracks here. Well, actually, this is all Speedbowl registrations here. 2015, 16, 17, 2021.
We got a Stafford
We got
up
a
here.
Stafford inspection up top. And I'm sure there was more than that.
It's been to Thompson. I know that Rent a Race Car brought it perhaps to Lee and Star. I'm
Another
not sure.
old Stafford.
I'm not sure where else they brought it. What year was the stamp?
That one's hidden. 2007. Wow.
There you go.
2007. Stafford certified. And when I got this car to drive and we picked it up from Rent a Race Car, it had unique stickers all over it. You know, a lot of characteristics of different people that would get to drive the car and, you know, put their own little touch on it, which is cool. I personally always referred to this car as Princess Emma because when I got it, right above the driver window here where the name would go, it said "Happy Birthday, Princess Emma" in sparkly foam letters. So I really liked that. I left the Princess Emma on there for a while, but that was her name when it was in my hands. I don't know, Pete, did you ever have a name for this car, or not much of a name guy?
I believe this car might have been referred to as Christine.
Christine. Oh, vicious. Vicious. There's the official marking for the Super X Division 37SX. Got to play by the rules and label your cap.
Yeah, how many Super X cars have a fancy bladder style ATL cell in there?
That's true.
But
Yep, she was good. She was a very fun car to drive. I'm really glad. That's why I wanted to come up and get a look at it, get it on the internet, so that we can, you know, have a look at it now before it gets back out on the track again.
And it's nothing special. It's just a stock. It's just a stock metric chassis. There's nothing, you know. Racing doesn't have to be stupid expensive. It's very easy to get carried away when everybody insists on having the best of the best. But, you know, we've had a lot of fun with this, and really, I mean, really haven't spent a ton of money.
Not at all. I mean, I can even remember when it was probably at its lowest point in my ownership. Well, in my possession, I should say, not ownership, but when I was driving it and I was really putting it back, at one point I had gotten a little frustrated because it just felt like I was putting a lot of work into it. But once I had gotten it on the track, I realized the stuff I had done was really not a lot of work whatsoever. It just, you know, sometimes it feels that way. But then I got on track and realized, oh, the car's all there, and that's all it needed was just these little things buttoned up on it. And now all of a sudden it was a turnkey ride again. You know, and there's always the next thing that could be done. But it was certainly enough to get me out there and get me top 10 finishes, which in that division was a lot of fun, because even the stock Super X division is certainly not a stock division any longer.
Yep.
It's very competitive, and the guys that run in the front work really hard on their cars. Not to mention the fact that we did technically have a 305 in it.
We didn't technically have a 305. We had a 305, and it's now a 305 with a see-through window in the oil pan that's sitting right over there.
Just for reference.
So,
the old boat motor, or the boat anchor at this point. We'll see what it's got.
I was told, Gary from Rent a Race Car actually told me that is the last, that 305 was the last 305 to win a race at Stafford, when Stafford was still, before the Dare stocks, what are now the Stafford Street stocks, went to all crate motors. That was the last 305 to take a win. As
much as I would like to say, oh, we were running a 305 against 350s, I know for if we were to just use off the street 305, it would have been nothing like this did. And as much as it was a 305 in a 350 world, it kept up decent. And so it definitely must have been a pretty good motor at some point or another, because it worked well for me and it was competitive against much higher horsepower cars. So
yeah,
it definitely
you were running top 10s with it without any, you know, without any issue, which is, I mean, as much a tribute to the engine as it is to the car, because the thing handled well.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, you can have as much horsepower, you know, you can have a, you know, a 50 horsepower advantage over everybody else, but if it doesn't turn, it's not going to do you any good.
Every once in a while I'd get the tire pressures just right for the most part. Maybe it was the nights you showed up and gave me a hand looking things over, but like you said, I would be able to I would just lift a very little bit going into the corner and then right back into it full bore. And maybe it was the lack of the big motor, but I could put my foot right into it halfway through that corner as if I never even had an issue. It wouldn't walk on me. It would just grip and go straight out of the corner.
And it just rotate right through the center. And for you, for driving who's used to driving a front wheel drive car, have something that rotates that nice in the center of the corner is probably a pretty different experience.
That was not only a different experience, but it was a fun experience, because the car wasn't just, you know, if you're off in a front wheel drive, there's just nothing you can do. That thing is going to plow to the front. And then it's true for a rear wheel drive, of course. If you're out to lunch, you're out to lunch. But to just be able to have the option to just kick it out if you really needed to, feather the gas a couple times, you jerk the wheel, and you're rotating for sure.
Yeah, it was fun watching you drive it, because you could tell when you'd come off the corner and you'd plant the thing, and you could chase it up the track, and but you had that rear grip that you don't have in the front wheel drive car.
Exactly.
So you could really drive it hard off the corner and know that it wasn't going to just come out and slap.
And same thing, I'd see the 350s next to me, and a lot of them would, halfway through the race, their tires are getting hot, they'd be roasting tire coming out of the corner. And not that mine wouldn't be cooking by the end, but with those 10 to go, I could definitely tell the difference of, you know, the little bit less of horsepower actually benefited me on a short track like that.
Yep.
They didn't have the long straight to get away from me, so it was all corner. And that's also to speak about, you know, the way the Speedbowl runs, which is not necessarily all motor, but certainly all corner.
Yeah. No, I mean, whatever you got, it's got to handle, it's got to turn.
Well, that's all. We just really wanted to check in, Pete. I'm glad you could have us up so we could check this bad boy out.
You know, we owe everything to the crew chief.
Oh.
Here, so
bacon. Oh yeah, crew chief bacon.
Bacon, make sure that all the T's are crossed and all the lowercase J's are dotted.
That's right. All right, so yeah, thanks Pete for having us up. Of course, Blitz Black Motorsports. Hopefully I'll get a few starts in my Saturn this year, and Pete will come down and check that out, and we'll certainly go up to Stafford and hopefully see this thing out on the track, because I tell you what, that will be an exciting experience for me to see it on a big track like Stafford. You know, back really where it belongs, where everything started for it. Now, Pete, one last thing before we sign off. What body do you have for it? Because obviously you can't really see, but that's the body there on the trailer that I ran, and that's been on the car for a long time.
Well, this body was a body that I stripped off of like a 78 or 79 Monte Carlo, and so original stock body. The rocker panels that are on here are actually rocker panels that I've been using on race car bodies for probably at least 10 years. I'm pretty sure these rockers were the ones that were on my car when I busted my foot in 2008. Wow. This is when I was running a limited late model, that was a rear bumper cover that I had, so we just threw that on there. But back here in our storage facility, we have another stock body.
So it's actually, the body's not being donated off of any of these 3 Monte Carlo cars.
No, those are too nice.
Too nice.
But we still got.
Oh, no kidding. I haven't been back here in a while. I didn't realize we had so many Monte.
We still got. And you know, I wish I had another black door, because I wouldn't even paint it. I'd just leave it black with the excess stripes on it. But
that is pretty sweet.
But we got.
Very cool. Well, that'll be the body then.
Yep, some stock
It'll be
water
looking
panels.
clean. That's exciting. No, didn't expect to see that. All right. And probably the most exciting machine in the house, the Flying Hippie.
I'd love to know how you gauge excitement.
That's a good point. I guess if it's roasting tire and banging doors, then this could be a candidate.
I think the only thing this thing bangs is walls.
Bangs walls, the wall banger. Well, all right, Pete. Well, thank you so much for having us up, and we look forward to seeing you on track this year. Do you have any plan? What's the number going to be?
Cinco.
Okay.
Back to the beginning.
Back to the beginning. So the car is going to take a trip back down memory lane into its own history and start fresh once again. Just amazing to see a race car that could potentially run 25 years later after it started its life as a race car, much less so many years before as it's been a street car. That's pretty insane to me. That's why I wanted to come up and get some video on it. So stay tuned. You'll catch Pete out on Stafford Speedway, and like I said, stay tuned for some more Saturn updates. Hopefully we'll have something for you guys soon. Talk to you later.